GM, it is Thursday, the 16th of October. Welcome to Morning Market. So, what have we seen since the crypto crash? Well, here is Bitcoin from its breakdown level, far below, unable to retrace much of the gap at all. If you take something like a fib from the low to the high, we'll ignore the liquidation wick because that was an anomaly really fueled by the futures market. So we've retraced up to the 0.5. Ethereum, on the other hand, again, take it to that same point. We've retraced almost the entire breakdown, just shy of that one level. When it comes to stocks, they have, again, almost retraced the entire breakdown, coming up to the one. And gold, well, gold has just chatted to new all-time highs every single day. So we're seeing relative weakness on Bitcoin, where Bitcoin is underperforming Ethereum, it's underperforming stocks, and it's underperforming gold. Now, typically, that is a sign that leads to lower on Bitcoin, something I was talking with you guys about yesterday. So there is clear weakness in the markets. You can't ignore where capital is flowing or where a lack of capital is flowing. You have to take the markets for what it is, because price is the ultimate truth at the end of the day. So that makes looking for long setups more difficult on Bitcoin and therefore more favorable on ETH, stocks, and of course gold, which has been beautiful to trade. So looking at the wider crypto market, we have this high time frame support resistance level on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Total 3, and the others chart. So Bitcoin remains above its high time frame support resistance level. That is really your dividing line on the high time frame between can we remain bullish, or are we actually going to see something different where we confirm a distribution and have to have some sort of extended downwards period. Now with Ethereum, that is this level over here. So it's the breakout of the 2024 high. Got above it. Any price action below it is now playing with the idea of a false breakout. Total 3, so everything outside of Bitcoin and ETH, your altcoins, that is right at this level right now. And the others chart, so everything outside the top 10, is firmly below that level. So we're using the February 3rd liquidation day level, very key high time frame support resistance on the altcoin charts, and shows the relative weakness outside the top 10 compared to the altcoins that are inside the top 10. So when we zoom into the charts, starting with Bitcoin, what are we seeing? Well, on the daily, if we take away the wick, use the line chart for clarity, we can see that price was making highs, high, but unable to break out. And on a close basis, we're actually making higher lows. However, volatility has been really widening, as we can see. So you're in a range here where we need to start basing out and finding really support at this last zone here. So this was the chart I've been using for weeks with you guys now. We're right at the primary support, which is where so far we have been able to have some sort of bounce, but only into that resistance level. So when we add the wicks back in, what you can see is this zone between 114.8 and 116.5, sellers are happy to show up there. That is backtesting the value area low and value area high of these two volume profiles. So sellers are selling there and overpowering any hopes of demand at the moment. That's the level 2 flip. If you want to see higher and start to fill in this daily gap here on BTC, that takes you up to 120. And support wise, it's been 110 to 111.6k, this zone that I've shared with you guys between the high time frame SR and the value area low of September. So that's been where we're bouncing from. Below here, that opens up a move to the range low, and of course lose the range low. Then you're looking at high time frame bearish breakdown. So this is the chart that we're working with right now. Demand is showing up here. You can see by the wick, so potentially we can just start setting up a range here. That'll be perfectly fine. But when we zoom into lower time frames, this tells us the much finer picture. So yesterday's video, I mentioned to look for this sweep, and we've got that sweep this morning with the confirmation on the H4 candle here, closing green. However, we are coming up right into resistance, these 12 and 21 H4 EMA bands, which have been resistance over and over again, sending us lower each time they get hit. So is that going to continue, or are we going to be able to flip it this time and have a change of character? That's the question that you want to ask from here. And really, I want to show you this chart over here. So as I mentioned, yesterday's video, 12 and 21 bands, that's your immediate resistance. That led to a rejection. So now we need to overcome that level. And I've got the Bitcoin chart up here. This was the distribution when we were above the Q4 open briefly after that big liquidation, consolidating, but then we broke down, confirming it as distribution. Therefore, any price action that comes back into this zone you're seeing is met with selling, because smart money, those spot sellers I told you guys about, they don't sell during the liquidation day. They wait. They know there's going to be a bounce, and then they sell on that first bounce. That leads to extended selling, and if this support holds, then good. That means demand showed up. But if this support doesn't hold, that means this new spot seller is pushing the market down lower. So that's why these levels are very key. That's why we're trading it level by level this week. And so far, took the liquidity, sweeping around that high time frame SR, which is good. But now you've got this intra-week support resistance level at 111.6K. You can see this has been support many times. So grab a brush over here. You can see support, support. Then it flipped and turned into resistance, resistance, and even this morning, resistance. So clearly, this is the level we need to get above to actually start confirming that this could really be a reversal setting up here, at least to the range high, where then potentially maybe we reject red path or continue on, reclaim that Q4 open, break out. Then you're looking at the green path and filling in some of that daily gap that I mentioned. So this is what I'll be looking for on BTC. Flip this intra-week level. You can look for higher, then maybe resistance comes in here. Those spot sellers show up again. If so, look for your reversal signs, closing back below that red box. Or if we can actually trade into it, accept into it, that means demand is outweighing that previous supply here, and we can look at the green path, and you're looking for breakouts above that high. And same to the downside. Of course, if we reject here, then you're just looking for likely this level to break now, because we've tested it once, tested it twice, and many other times previously around this high time frame SR. So you're looking for a breakdown to the range low, where it's, do we then reclaim the high time frame SR, or do we actually break down? So that is what I would be looking for in terms of Bitcoin and trading it. Got some intra-week levels, and open interest has built up 10% in contract terms. At the same time, price is flat. So again, you've got this huge buildup of longs and shorts. Price volatility is decreasing. So you're just slowly churning dumb money out of the game. Market makers, they're loving it. They buy low, sell high, buy low. While retail flip long, short, long, short, long, short. They get chopped up trading this mess rather than waiting for the clear sweeps, the clear signals above resistance or below support. And eventually, when one of those sides breaks, all of that offside positioning is going to get wiped in this open interest, which can lead to a big move. So that's what I'll be watching out for on Bitcoin. If we stay below 111.6, then I'll be looking for further downside and potentially a move down to that range low around 107. And then from there, looking to see how does that hold up. But flip that level, then we're looking at this distribution zone to see, can we start accepting within that again? So that is it for BTC. So far rejecting the 12 and 21 bands. And of course, we've got that intraday level as mentioned around this 111.6K. So Bitcoin. Moving on to Ethereum. Well, same view. Let's take out the wicks for a second, go on the line chart. We can see that Ethereum is consolidating with lower lows and lower highs. So we are technically in downtrending structure and we are breaking down. However, it is producing a bounce each time. And when you add those wicks back in, it paints a better picture on ETH because you can see there was a huge liquidation below the trap here. However, we've since reclaimed this trap support between 3.8 and 4026. So that's currently holding as a demand zone where demand previously showed up over here. So buyers are willing to buy in this zone. However, the high time frame support resistance level has been lost. And that was lost after we rejected the previous support I've been mentioning to you guys, the interim support between 4.2 and 4.3K. Back tested it, sellers were willing to sell there, and they managed to flush it back below the high time frame SR. So get above this interim support, we can start trading towards these higher levels. But we got to flip the high time frame SR level first. And while we're below that, looking for demand to show up here, because if we start to lose this level, then you're confirming a downtrend and all of this range between 4.1 and the all-time high. This is then looking like distribution. So zooming into the lower time frames, what do we see? Well, that red path played out beautifully from yesterday's video. Mentioned that we back tested that 4.2K Sunday high level over here bearishly after faking out above it. That is likely to lead to a reversal, and that's what's played out. Guys, if you enjoy these videos from a real full-time trader, make sure you hit subscribe, drop a like, drop a comment, let me know your thoughts, what I can do better. I read every single comment you drop, always. So help me out if you do enjoy this content. I know half of you are logged out and not subscribing, so make sure let's change that, bring it up to 300, because these paths, these trades have been very nice this week on my morning market videos in what has been a super choppy market. Let's call it for what it is. If your trading has been more difficult than usual, that's okay, because volatility has literally been decreasing. Had a huge volatile move, and now we're going into these choppy ranging conditions, which aren't even the best conditions when it comes to range trading, because as I said, you're getting this compression rather than volatility expansion over here. You can see higher lows and lower highs constantly forming as price gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And eventually that's going to expand, guys. Eventually that's going to produce a good move. So stay with the charts, keep your levels. Seeing this reversal play out, said confirmation, once you lose the high time frame SR, we then go downwards. Don't need these bands. So now we're back testing the high time frame SR. That's the level still to flip. You still want to get above here. And then ideally Sunday's high, which is now the main point, the breakout point, which we failed to get above twice. So get above it for a third time. You're probably going to look for a push to new highs. But first we've got the high time frame SR. And while that's holding as resistance, you can expect a move down to this liquidity, which has been building up over here recently. So ETH's relatively outperformed Bitcoin. We know that. Hasn't swept the same levels. ETH's actually building more positive structure, whereas Bitcoin is breaking down at the same time and sweeping liquidity. Therefore, often you see that just before the final flush, because retail see that on ETH and then they get bulls long. And it's usually one move away from the actual flush. And that's, of course, just anecdotal discretionary analysis. Don't take that as gospel, but it's a pattern I've noticed in the market. So again, I'm looking at this liquidity. Can we sweep in reverse, or do we break down and start losing those levels? If so, we got that final liquidity here. But really, as I said, you want to hold between 3.8 to 4K, which equivalent here is the range low. So any sweep around the liquidity or range low is where you want to see this move go at the lowest, because breaking down below the range low likely confirms a momentum downtrend and bears really in control. And any sweeps around this lower liquidity is really just for scalps. So make sure you know your time frames that you're trading on. Are you scalping? Are you day trading? Are you swing trading? I.e., is it an intraday hold, or you're looking to hold it for multiple days, multiple weeks? You have to define your time frames when it comes to these trades. This is all intraday, intra-week trading, low time frame levels. So Solana, what are we seeing? Well, Sol has used these beautiful pivot levels all cycle. Flipped first one, led to a move higher. We then found support at 112 once, twice, produced beautiful moves each time. But that came into the previous all-time high, rejected. And since then, we've had the yearly open level, which has been the key hard time frame SR level. Resistance, then got above it, produced a nice move. And Solana actually hasn't taken its all-time high liquidity in these mid stages of 2025, unlike Bitcoin, unlike Ethereum, unlike BNB. So seeing a little bit of strength on Solana compared to those coins, because there are targets above, but then again, that is because it was weaker before. However, to clearly put it into an easy to digest way of thinking is above yearly open bullish, below yearly open bearish. That is as binary as you can really get when it comes to Solana. And you've got this weekly candle here, this order block, which we flushed into, managed to keep closing within. And I'd want to see Solana break above this gap over here. Because yes, yearly open's holding, and that's good for bulls while that's holding. But to show some strength now, let's start retracing some of these gaps and invalidate this downtrend here, where we've got spot sellers. They showed up here. And spot sellers also showed up again here. So can we start invalidating that, get above this gap over here, and start consolidating bullishly instead of bearishly and turning it into distribution? If so, we can look for some moves higher on SOL, but of course, lose the yearly open, then you're again at danger of coming and filling in that wick. So it's very important to see from here on your altcoins. Do they follow the red path as we head into November and actually end up lower than where we are now? Or do they manage to consolidate in something like the green path, remaining in its base where we are here in October? So in short, do we head into November lower than where we are right now in October? Or do we actually consolidate and build a base in October? That's going to set up your base for your altcoins for potential end of year rallies. And when we look at the index to give you guys a wider gauge of that, so we could remove this path for now. It's from a previous weekly outlook video. Make sure to check it out. If you haven't, go through my high time frame plans portfolio. I'll pin it in the comments. But looking at this chart over here, let's hide this. Low time frames. Got a serious question where you've got a low here, high here, much like Bitcoin, much like ETH, using these simple levels. Can we head into November having stayed within this range? If so, sets up for a potential end of year rally. Or do we actually head into November lower than where we are now? If so, that maybe sets up for bearish continuation, as that means sellers are outweighing buyers despite flushing out all of those leverage longs, which in the bull case should be a leverage reset like the green path. So you just base out, reaccumulate, go higher. And in the bear case, that is actually a wipeout and a bearish liquidation candle where you then start trading into it in this scenario where we end up lower come November. So that's what you've got to watch for on your altcoins. Look at your altcoin respectively within this range to see how it consolidates. And it's really all about the next 10, 20, 30 days. How do the charts shape up? Simple as that. So that is the crypto market. Let's look at gold quickly because seen some funny stuff going on with gold, haven't we? So promise you guys I'll talk about this. Seeing a long queue outside a gold shop essentially in Sydney. Bunch of smart money traders queuing up. Are they smart money? Are they dumb money? Who knows? Doesn't look like smart money. Doesn't seem like the kind of thing smart money would do. Queuing up to purchase their gold. Imagine that was a queue for a Bitcoin ATM. Tells you a little bit about where you are at potentially in this rally on gold. So by no means am I saying tops in, but if this chart does something like this, pushes up for a little bit more before then having some sort of sell-off and consolidation, you'd look back on that day and say, oh yeah, that was a top signal. Now we don't trade based off a piece of news. Again, we look for the price action triggers to show us that, okay, yeah, likely top. And that comes after you start to lose these structure levels here, break below again. Then you can say, okay, high time frame top signal that was. But for now, chart's making new highs every day. It is a good bullish chart. I mentioned to you guys in yesterday's video, on the 1 hour chart, we had a beautiful setup play out on gold. So if this chart loads, here we have it. There's that consolidation. I mentioned, look to see which side of this impulse candle, high volume candle breaks. We broke to the upside. I mentioned that I was looking for longs here. Breakout above. Watch the H1 bands. They held, produced new highs. So GM to anyone trading gold. I know a bunch of you sharing your profits with me based on some of the calls I've made. This chart's been beautiful to trade. Beautiful trend trading. So looks like longs have been continuing to perform on these H1 12 and 21 band retests. Wait for that to fail. Then that's a shift of character. And once the lower time frames start to fail, that's when you go to your higher time frames, something like your daily. You look at this candle over here and you say, okay, this was the last big sell-off attempt candle. This is where bears tried to push gold below 4K. So from there, you want to see if we do end up going into a high time frame sell-off, does this now hold as support? And it most likely will be that next demand zone for gold if we do have some sort of sell-off in the coming weeks to months. Of course, parabolic chart at the moment, don't get in the way of a moving train. Definitely don't short a chart like this, which keeps holding its daily bands. But later on, you'll be looking for a retest of this zone to see if it holds or not to determine whether this trend is going to continue chatting on like this, or whether this is actually more likely to be going into some sort of downwards or correction like this. So that's what you're looking for on gold. And that's going to be obviously very decisive of what Bitcoin does, because we know gold's been outperforming Bitcoin. Stocks have been outperforming Bitcoin. That's not allowing Bitcoin to be strong. So if gold can actually consolidate, cool off, that's going to allow Bitcoin to have its best run. So moving on to stocks. Let's check these stocks out. So mentioned to you guys, we're looking for, do this sell-off, does it lead to new highs like it previously has? Every single time you get one sell-off leads to new highs. 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 Now again, is this one sell-off and new highs? Or is it something different like the orange path? That'll be shown to us over here if this low breaks. And then we're probably moving into some sort of extended downside. So that would be, of course, a risk-off period. Are we seeing those signs? Well, the dollar is actually reversing from that range low level, which should be good for your risk assets as long as we stay below there. Get above there, however, then you're looking at potential risk off in the market. So be watching the dollar. Can we continue breaking down, or do we end up flipping this range low at 99 in the coming days? Of course, Trump, he's announced a price floor or potential price floor for China. So lots of tariff talks again, heating up. Let's see what the markets cook up as we head into these later Q4 stages. So see you guys in the next one. Drop a like, subscribe, hit a comment. Let me know what you thought of this video. GM.